Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another driver ratings, guys, the last one of 2019. Obviously we had the race at the Yas Marina circuit yesterday in Abu Dhabi. Not a classic, admittedly we'd said, another one in the kind of armoury for Abu Dhabi not being a great Grand Prix, but we will still give the driver ratings a big congratulations to Lewis Hamilton, obviously winning another Grand Prix, and fittingly the last Grand Prix of the decade in the Mercedes he's been so dominant in. So what we do in driver ratings is we give the drivers 1 to 20 on the grid a score out of 10 based on their race performance. So guys, we will now look at those. So we start off with the race winner himself, Lewis Hamilton. For me, a 10 out of 10 performance. Utterly dominant all weekend. From securing pole position on the Saturday, he led every single lap of this Grand Prix. An incredible achievement. Dominated in terms of the distance it was between him and Max Verstappen in second. Just an incredibly efficient performance from the British driver and 6-time world champion. So for me, Lewis Hamilton gets a 10 out of 10. Flawless race for him. In P2 was Max Verstappen. For me, he had one shot at making this race kind of somewhat competitive, and that was getting ahead of Lewis Hamilton into turn 1. He wasn't able to do that, but he was still doing a fantastic race, having a nice battle with Charles Leclerc, which he managed to finish on top of. So he gets a 9 out of 10 for his race performance for me. A fantastic all-round season for Max Verstappen if we look at things as a whole. So a 9 out of 10 for his race performance yesterday. In P3, we have Charles Leclerc. Ferrari, they weren't really at the races. They lost so much time in that final sector, which made them uncompetitive. He was able to get ahead of Max Verstappen at the start, but with a mixture of Red Bull getting their strategy better than Ferrari, shock, he is going to get a 7 out of 10 performance for me. A good performance, but nothing that was kind of exceptional. It would have been a better rating if he was able to hold on to that second position from Max Verstappen. In P4, we have from the back Valtteri Bottas, very close to overtaking Leclerc at the end, got the gap down to within a second. The Mercedes was the dominant car all weekend, a really good race package they had. Mercedes are usually very dominant, but still a strong performance, finishing ahead of both Sebastian Vettel and Alexander Albon. I'm going to give Valtteri Bottas a 9 out of 10 for this performance. In P5, we have the German Sebastian Vettel. Ferrari getting the strategy wrong in terms of putting him on the soft tyre. It didn't work. None of the drivers around him were on that soft tyre. And yeah, it wasn't one that was going to work. He made the soft compound last as long as he could, but he was forced onto a two-stop strategy, overtaking Alex Albon at the end, which was a good overtake, securing 5th. A bit of a sad and tailing off end for Sebastian Vettel for the season. A 6 out of 10 for his race performance from me. Alexander Albon, for me, this was his worst race in a Red Bull. He hadn't been confident at the circuit all weekend. Not a great qualifying performance, and I think he finished in total 30 seconds behind his teammate Max Verstappen. For me, his main one to compare it to was Sebastian Vettel he was double stacked in the pit stop with Ferrari. It wasn't a great pit stop from Ferrari. He was in there for a total of 6.9 seconds. Albon wasn't able to perform the overcut on him and stay out and get a better performance than Sebastian Vettel, and also he wasn't able to hold off Vettel coming late on into the race. So a disappointing race from Alex Albon, a 5 out of 10 for me. It wasn't like truly terrible, but it certainly wasn't a great race for Albon. In P7 we have Sergio Perez, one of the drivers of the day, although I'll come on to who was my driver of the day later on in the video. Superb. Again, I mentioned it in my qualifying live reaction. P11 is his favourite position to qualify. Why? Because he can go a long stint on those first set of tyres, the medium compound. He can go long into the race before switching onto those hard compounds. Fantastic tyre management. It is what has made Sergio Perez such a good driver in this decade. Again, a fantastic performance, finishing better than the rest, and a great points finish for Sergio. And the only one I keep saying he hasn't finished in was Singapore, which was an engine failure. So every race that he's competed in, he has scored points that has been able to finish the race. So superb from Sergio Perez, 9 out of 10 for his performance for me. Lando Norris also gets a 9 out of 10, maybe even slightly more than Sergio Perez, just for the pure reason that obviously he made it into Q3. He stopped the earliest out of the one-stoppers because he had the soft compound, but only on the final lap, and it was a fantastic overtake from Sergio Perez, going around the outside, I believe, of turn 11 on Lando Norris before obviously having the inside line going through turn 12 and then turn 13. The last point, he could have overtaken Lando Norris on the lap, and he was able to screw it. But Lando Norris making those tyres work and making that strategy work was an absolutely superb from my rookie of the season. NP9, we have Daniel Kvyat. A very good drive from the Toro Rosso driver, and certainly one he needed going into the winter break. It has been a real struggle this second half of the season for Daniel Kvyat after being overlooked for that Red Bull seat, but it was a strong performance, made the one-stop strategy work like Sergio Perez, and yeah, a really good overtake actually on Hulkenberg during the race to make sure he got into that P9 position and extended his lead in front of him, which meant he wasn't under pressure from the likes of Sainz and Ricciardo at the end. So yeah, very good race from Daniel Kvyat, but I would still give him a 8 out of 10 for Daniel Kvyat. Well done. In P10, we have Carlos Sainz securing 6th in the Drivers' Championship. Had to make the two-stop strategy work, and he did, overtaking Nico Hulkenberg on the last possible opportunity, again where Sergio Perez did it on Lando Norris. Fantastic, locking up into the corner, but he was bravest, made the corner, was able to overtake Nico Hulkenberg at the end there, and secured a well-deserved 6th in the Drivers' Championship. For me, still, it was a struggle because of that strategy. It wasn't as good as performance as the one-stoppers, but making that overtake at the end, still good. I'm going to give a 7 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. In P11, we have Daniel Ricciardo just missing out the points, but also finishing ahead of his teammates again within the race situation. Like Carlos Sainz, having to go onto that two-stop strategy as they weren't able to go long enough on that first stint to make the one-stopper work like Nico Hulkenberg was able to do. But yes, yeah, not great from that perspective. Wasn't able to get past Carlos Sainz. He probably, if the race was 2-3 laps longer, would have got past Carlos Sainz because he was on the soft compound compared to Carlos's medium compound. But yes, difficult race for Daniel Ricciardo, a 7 out of 10 as well. And moving on to P12, we have Nico Hulkenberg. And for me, it was a disappointing end to what has been a disappointing season for Nico Hulkenberg. Obviously, probably his last race in Formula 1, he wasn't able to secure a World Championship position. He lost, obviously, that points position at the end, which would have been a good race, making the one-stop work from obviously qualifying in Q3. But unfortunately, he was overtaken by Sainz and Ricciardo at the end. After he was overtaken with Sainz, he just lost it, going wide into the exit of turn 13, and Daniel Ricciardo was able to take advantage of that situation. But yes, did well to go as long as he did on the first stint, but the second stint just wasn't quick enough. He performed the undercut on both Perez and Kvyat, and disappointing where both of them finished, where where Nico Hulkenberg finished compared the quality of the Renault to the Racing Point and the Toro Rosso. In P13, we have Kimi Raikkonen finishing the best of the kind of pack of 3, I would say, of Williams, pack of 2 between Alfa Romeo and Haas. Probably a 7 out of 10. A good performance, poor qualifying for Kimi Raikkonen. I think he started from P17 on the grid because of that penalty to Valtteri Bottas. So a solid race from Kimi Raikkonen, stayed out the drama, didn't really see much from him, but a solid race. In P14 we have Kevin Magnussen, an absolutely fantastic start, going from P14 to P9, overtaking that Renault of Hulkenberg at the start. Was a really great start, but the Renault just doesn't have the race pace. So unfortunately for him, he dropped back throughout the field, but maintaining that position is actually probably quite a good one. So comparative to Haas's performance, it is probably a 7 out of 10 performance. And moving on to his teammate in P15, it is Romain Grosjean. Slightly worse for me than Kevin Magnussen, 6 out of 10. His weekend was compromised with that clash with Valtteri Bottas in FP2 because the setup of the car was never quite the same after that incident. But yes, probably a better race than Nico Hulkenberg. So that's why he gets more than 5 out of 10, but not as good as race as what his teammate had. Obviously, Kevin Magnussen having that fantastic start. So a 6 out of 10 for Romain Grosjean for me. Moving on to P16, Antonio Giovinazzi, a bit of a nothing race. Obviously was affected by that clash that he had with Robert Kubica during the race, which caused damage to his front wing. Not going to be too harsh on Giovinazzi, but not a particularly great one. Probably a 6 out of 10 as well for that performance. In P17 we do have George Russell finishing a lap ahead of his teammate and getting that whitewash in qualifying. For me, I'm going to give George Russell a 7 out of 10. Comfortably outperformed that Williams car. It is harder to give anything more than that, just because how uncompetitive that Williams car is, but finishing a whole lap ahead of your teammate is still pretty impressive in the grand scheme of things. So a 7 out of 10 for George Russell for me. In P18, Pierre Gasly and the race that could have been. Unfortunately bumped by Stroll at the start, which forced him into the back of Sergio Perez, losing his front wing and compromising his chance of getting 6th in the Drivers' Championship. And right up until that last lap, 6th in the Drivers' Championship due to countback, obviously getting that P2 in Brazil last time out, would have meant that he would have secured it, but I'm disappointed we missed out on that fight between Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly within the race. Nothing really he could do. A 5 out of 10 performance because we never really got to see what he could do within the race. In P19, the last of the classified finishers was Robert Kubica, 5 out of 10. Again, it's hard to give anything bad to Robert Kubica in the race, but it's hard to give anything good either. Finished at the back of the field, not the comeback that he would have wanted, but it is a fantastic achievement that he even made it back onto the track and proving people wrong that he could achieve this. It's a shame that he wasn't in more competitive machinery to see what his comeback could have really been, but yes, I wish Robert Kubica the best of luck in the future in kind of DTM. I think is his preferred one he's going to go to, and I think he's also going to be involved in F1 in terms of testing driver seats as well. In P20, the only retiree from the race was Lance Stroll. It's going to be a 4 out of 10 for me because he obviously wasn't great bumping into, it wasn't the worst incident, but he just locked up bumping into Gasly, which ruined his race. So yeah, 4 out of 10, and obviously eventually retiring from the race as well, probably as a result of that early collision with Gasly. And there you go guys, that is my roundup of the driver ratings. Let me know what you think in the comments below. For me, my driver of the day, it was Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely flawless from start to finish. It was nice Nico Hulkenberg got voted in his probably last Grand Prix in Formula 1. But for me, Lewis Hamilton, flawless weekend, was just absolutely brilliant. And as I said earlier, it's almost fitting that, you know, in a decade where Mercedes have been dominant, where Lewis Hamilton has been dominant, securing 5 world championships within that time. Yeah, incredible by Lewis Hamilton, great drive. He was the only one who got a 10 out of 10, so of course he is driver of the day. For me, the race rating is going to be 6 out of 10. Again, not a great season finale at Abu Dhabi. It is a track with so much potential. What a fantastic place to go to for a season finale. The spectacle, the night race, being in that harbour of Yas Marina. yeah, it's a great location, but they need to improve the track to improve the racing. It does get a 6 out of 10 because there were some good overtakes within that still, and there were some good action. It wasn't a truly awful race, but it certainly didn't have the excitement, and I think any race that doesn't have a competitive fight for the lead always suffers. But that last lap incident overtakes with Perez and Sainz, and some fighting between Verstappen and Leclerc throughout as well, gives it a 6 out of 10 for me. But overall, that is the video, guys. Hope you have enjoyed it. Comment down below if you agree with my ratings, or what would you rate the drivers differently in that aspect. Who was your driver of the day? And let me know what you would rate Abu Dhabi as a race for the final race of 2019. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you are new around here, don't forget you can subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification, and you can keep up to date with all our latest content and get more videos just like this one. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing!